Now, as I promised, Frank Kelly is here with me in studio, and you very welcome indeed. He has a memoir, The Last Gig. It's a memoir from Frank looking back at nearly 60 years of being a freelance actor. So it's very nice to see you in this morning. You haven't been well, Frank?
No, I haven't been well. I was attending a doctor and was discovered to have heart failure, would you believe, which came on having visited friends of mine down in Bowlesbridge at a lovely dinner party, and I had no drink, which is not me at all, so I love my wine. And I didn't have anything, and came home because I was on antibiotics.
Yeah.
Came home and went into a terrible rigor, as it's called professionally, and had to be taken in by ambulance to Vincent's, and it started from there. I spent 4 weeks in Vincent's and ended up with a heart specialist, and I was released from there. I was out a short time, and then I was back in again with terrible symptoms of the same kind of weakness into Vincent's, and I spent 4 weeks there, and I spent 10 weeks in Donnybrook Hospital, and then I dug a tunnel. I got out.
Yeah. Well, that's tricky. And
I couldn't praise them highly enough, mind you.
But you were always very fit sort of a person. But
I intend to be again too.
Right.
I really do.
Well, we were talking about it earlier on. I don't know if you heard us with the doctor and with Pat Henry, how really important it is, particularly as the years are going by. People will remember you from Hall's Peak. People will remember you from your incredible range of work that you have done. Father Jack was probably the one that got the widest recognition, would you think?
Huge recognition.
Yeah.
It's played all over the world, that series. I've had people come up to me and say, your series is top of the pops in our country, and in the most remote countries. You've just no idea.
It's extraordinary,
isn't it? It's just amazing, isn't it? Everywhere. And they've all tuned into the idiosyncratic kind of humour, you know?
You were a bit worried, I gather, before you started on it, that it just might be taking a swipe at the church all the time?
I was worried, yeah. And then I was reassured, and we discussed it right through. And you could go on the word of Graham and Arthur, the two writers, that it wouldn't be that.
Yeah.
Actually, a very funny thing is that Arthur told me once that one of the things that motivated him to write the series in the first place was that he had an eccentric uncle who was a priest. And one day he was with his sister in the back of a car, and they were talking at that stage about having missed Mass, and he stuck the car to the road, said Mass, and gave them both communion in the back seat. He said that changed his life. And it changed a lot of other lives.
It sure did. It sure did. But, you know, at the time, you were all flying high. But there was a big age difference between you and the others.
There was indeed, yes. Yeah. I used to notice that in London because when they were socialising or when the weekend came, other than the few pints in the pub after work, after rehearsal, when the weekend came and there were social arrangements, I was never included. They weren't being hurtful. They never thought of it. Young people can do that.
Yeah.
And there's a hell of a gap, you know, age gap. It does make a difference, you know.
And you were lonely during that.
Very, yeah, except for my son, Stephen, was working in London. But I couldn't kind of take all his time. He had his own friends and his own social life. But he used to attend the show every week. And I'd see him after the show. And sometimes I'd see him during the week.
Right.
And we'd have nice times out, you know.
Yeah.
But I was like a child. I was so grateful. I was so lonely. I don't stand up to loneliness very well.
You described an occasion that you went to the bar to a bar near your accommodation, and you were reading the paper and having a pint.
Oh yes, just across from Regent's Park there. My flat was just there, and I went into the bar and I was having a pint, and in the middle of reading the paper, somebody pulled it down, which is extremely annoying.
Yes.
And he said, would I please excuse his intrusion on my time? He was enormous. He blocked out the light. And he said, but he he would like me to have an autograph for his child, that it meant a tremendous amount to him. So I thought, well, if it does, well, do it and be gracious about it. So I did it. And he was only gone and the light was blocked out again, and there was a replica with the same request. And there was Welsh Guards on their annual bash. And I had decided for the whole lot. And there must have been 50 of them. And I was in a dazed condition with a flat pint afterwards. I just crossed the road back to my flat, feeling more lonely than ever.
Yeah, it's very, very...
They did ask me to go on the trip, but you don't go drink with those guys. You'd never be able to put it away. You know?
Well, the Welsh would always be tricky. When you were at the other end of your career in UCD, you started off in Dramsock. That was clearly a terribly important event for you.
They were the most exciting years of my life. I had been a terrible failure in school. I escaped and got into college. I got a matric in 5th year in Blackrock College. My parents insisted that I do 6th year, which I did, and that was very boring because I had my matric and I was ready to go. Got to UCD and had a ball. And I always remember, it's in the book, Owen Dudley Edwards, the history professor, my first history lecture, he said, Lecky, was an historian, has said about Daniel O'Connell that one only had to throw a stick over a workhouse wall to hit one of his bastards. And I said, oh, this is a new subject. I've never thought, all I'd ever heard before were dates and things like that, you know. So
the Battle at the Boyne and that kind of thing.
I suddenly got a taste for history, you know. And in other words, when you went to college, you learnt all about people and their lives and their interaction. It wasn't just a series of bloody dates, you know.
Right.
And, you know, it's the difference between mathematics and sums. You know?
I guess so. And the Dramsock, who was around that time?
Who was there? Fergus Linehan, Rosalind Linehan, who was our matron of honour at our wedding, Anne O'Dwyer, and there was a huge selection of people, all Kate Binchy. It's hard to remember all the names, but we had a great gathering, a great coming together of people.
But in terms of you personally, it means that loads of people in the college knew who you were.
Well, that was a huge asset, you see. It really was. It makes the life very easy in college when you don't have to go finding out who everyone else is. They knew who I was, and we were invited by the staff to all the staff dues. And the wage we received was free drink. So you'd be legless afterwards.
You wouldn't miss one,
You'd be twice as popular as you were and legless as well. That's not bad, you know, as a student. And we also made a great impact because, you see, that kind of political satire had just come in and Variety was on the way out. And we were obscuring Variety, really. Beyond the Fringe did it in London, you know.
Yes, yeah.
It virtually killed Variety as well.
Yeah.
But one night we had most of the front bench of the government at the show in the Isle of Max in Marion Square in Stephen's Green.
Yeah. And
another night we had most of the opposition. So when you're getting that kind of interest, you're having an impact, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, you sure.
And my first billing, I was very spoiled when I started. My first billing was about third billing at the Gaiety Theatre when I started to turn pro. And mind you, I landed on my bum after that several times. I mean, many times. But it was a great start in college, you know.
Yeah. And obviously you knew this is what I want, this is what I like.
Halfway through my life in the Dramsock, it was about 4 years, I knew it was a vocation. And although I did the bar and I did a BCL degree in college, I had decided halfway through that I was going to be an actor. But I was determined to complete both because I don't leave things incomplete, I do them. And also I didn't want a cop out of all those educational opportunities. You know, I loved studying law. I really enjoyed it.
Did your parents nearly have a stroke when you said, well, that's the end of law now, it's the boards for me?
They were kind of heartened by the fact that I had finished my degrees. That's a kind of ethic, middle class ethic, that at least he finished the bloody degree. You know?
Yeah.
And no, they weren't too stricken. They weren't too, but they were upset. My mother was a great fan of the theatre. She'd always attended the theatre regularly, but she couldn't conceive of my becoming an actor, you know.
Right, yeah.
But there was no bitterness about it.
Right.
It wasn't a nasty situation.
I saw that you got assistance, well, according to yourself, from none other than Michael Caine. You had a small role in the
I'll tell you
Italian
what happened
job.
with Marty Kane. No, it's quite simple. He wouldn't remember this. We were locked in a small space for about 12 hours. What happened was they were coming to some decision about the angle of a shot
Yeah.
and whether to add or to not have these extra lines in it to justify the situation. And the director and his crew went off into a corner, and Michael Caine and I got kind of comfortable in this space. We'd like been trapped in a lift, but a nice lift,
Right.
well upholstered lift. And we were brought our food in there, and we talked about going to school, and we talked about life, and we talked about everything, religious beliefs, all the things people do, politics, everything, for the whole day. And he became Michael, and I became Frank. It was just Mike and Frank. 12 hours or 10 hours, a long time to be stuck. And we were asked would we like to leave, and we said no. And then eventually they didn't do that shot. But Michael said to the director, he said, Frank might need a few extra lines. He said, Frank might need a few extra lines over here, you know. So they went into a terrible tizzy over that, you see, discussing that. And I said to him, Michael, you don't have to do that. It's okay, it's cool. You don't have to do that. And he said out of the corner of his mouth, do you want the gig or don't you? And I wanted the gig, because it didn't happen, actually. I didn't go to it. That would have taken me to London with the film.
Oh, right. That was the Italian job.
The Italian job.
But you were in it, weren't you?
Oh, I was in it, yes.
Yeah.
I see him out, and I hand him to the boss.
Yeah.
I hand him to, who was the actor, the very famous old actor, played it. Oh, Noel, what? However, it doesn't matter.
Was that early on in your career, it was?
Quite early on.
Quite
yes,
early
it
on,
was,
yeah.
yeah. I was still really much, I was rearing children at that stage then.
Yeah, because you have a big family.
I have indeed, I have 7 of them. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And a precarious enough profession.
Completely precarious, yeah. I did hit the bottom a few times.
Did you?
When we had very little on the kitchen table, yeah. And at one stage I used to catch fish a lot. I fished. But we ate the fish that I caught and we depended on them. And we had the fridge full of mackerel and whatever I caught filleted and in bags. And the children never noticed that we're having fish every day. They thought it was a great life, you know.
They thought it was Friday every day, did they?
They thought it was Friday every day, yeah.
Well, I mean, there's nothing like a mackerel to keep you going. Now, a number of people wishing you the very, very best. Have any priests, I have been requested to ask you, have any priests, bishops, cardinals or popes told you to feck off?
A couple of priests did in jest, and I love that kind of priest who can do that.
Yeah.
I have never been attacked by a priest. The only one was an Anglican priest at Heathrow, one whom I knew, and we were on the luggage carousel.
Yeah.
And his attack on me was thwarted by the fact that the luggage arrived. And we were going for different aircraft. Bye. So, what a pity. He was very, very upset. He said, why do you do this? He said, priests are not that silly. But I said, that's the nature of satire. Of course we know they're not that silly. So you make them that silly. You know what I mean? He didn't understand the meaning of satire.
Right.
Or its function.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I think until people got very familiar with it, they thought you were having a go at priests.
Yeah, but the idea, a lot of people just had to come to terms with the idea of satire. It's a very important thing in society. Otherwise, you believe blandly every statement that politicians make.
Right.
If you don't turn them over and look at the obverse side, the fat man doesn't slip on the banana skin, you know?
Marian, wonderful to hear Frank and to know he's on the mend. He's given us all so much joy through the years, from the early days of Halls and then the Glen Abbey Show to Father Ted. I wish him all the best, as he is a precious national treasure, a thorough gentleman, much loved. How about that?
Well, whoever said that, I love them. That's a lovely thing to say. I don't deserve it because I'm a bit of a bastard.
By the way, I'm just looking here at Brian Field's picture. Did you ever perform in a Brian Field play?
No, to my great regret, I didn't. No, and I've seen the plays, Faith Healer and Translations and Philadelphia and all these. And I met the cast of, I think, Philadelphia in New York when I was there.
Yeah.
Met them sunning themselves outside the hostelry. And Fergus, Rosalie Linehan was in it, and Fergus and I were walking New York. I just took time out from a tour I was on of the States.
Right.
Which is in the book that I've just written.
Yes.
And I describe the various interesting things that happen on the tour throughout the States, you know.
Yeah, he's a loss to us, but I presume that we will see more and more and more of his work.
It's just it's a remarkable phenomenon that a writer dies, and he's a playwright, and not everybody goes to the theatre, and yet everybody knew about him, and everybody respected him, and everybody knew how great he was. And it's a great achievement. It's a great achievement for a playwright, because he wasn't writing for the movies.
Yeah, yeah.
And people went, and people loved his work, and people loved him. So that's a nice thing to be able to say about something.
Isn't it? It certainly is, and a very, very nice tribute to him. Another one here is coming into me. I wish Marian would ask Frank Kelly about his greatest role. Dr Astro?
Dr Astro. I frightened a lot of kids with that. I was walking up near where you used to get a licence in the north side of the city. And up in those streets one day, and I was feeling tired and overwrought, and suddenly I got a nudge in the back, and I turned around, and here is this enormous life alive, huge guy in a T-shirt and jeans, but the jeans are torn apart, and the T-shirt likewise. He's covered in tattoos, and he's filthy, and I needn't go on. And I said, right, this is it. And he said, I have a crowd to pluck with you. And I said, oh, geez, I've had it now. You know, this is it, you know. So he said, you frightened the heart out of me as Dr Astro when I was a kid. Well, I said, I'm very sorry I did. Cheerio now. He scuttled off. I thought I'd had it. I thought the end had come. You saw him.
What an amazing actor. So many years of great entertainment. His Christmas record, too, is the best of any Christmas record. And it is true. Do you know, no matter how many times you hear that, it still makes you laugh. Listen, I'm going to have to leave it there, Frank. Now, I know that you'll be signing your book in Dubray Bookshop in Blackrock at 3:30 today.
I will, yeah.
And thank you very, very much indeed for coming
It's
in.
lovely to see you again.
And I wish you good health.